Hello and welcome to Sustain, a production of Na'arafetu Center for Climate, Biodiversity, and Society. I'm Maria Armoudian. From the Antarctic to the deepest depths of the ocean, microplastics are found in increasingly large numbers. These tiny, seemingly inescapable plastics pose a range of threats to human health, animal life, and the ecosystems on which we rely. How can we deal with this avalanche of microplastics? We're joined by Professor Nathalie Gontard, the research director at France's National Research Institute for Agriculture, Food, and Environment, formerly a professor at universities of Montpellier and Kyoto. Also with us is Dr Samantha Ladewig. She's a research fellow at the University of Auckland and studies the effect of microplastic pollution on marine environments. So welcome to the both of you. It's so great to have you here. I want to start with the scope of the problem. How can we understand how big of a problem this is? Nathalie, let's start with you.
How can I explain that the problem is big? It's very complicated to explain. The first thing maybe is to say that our consumption of plastic is huge. Since 1950, we have used more than 12 billion tons of plastics. About 2 of them have been incinerated, so destructed, and then 10 billion tons are remaining in our planet. And this is about 5 times more than the total weight of the animal biomass on Earth. So just to give you an example on how these materials has been an important one on Earth. But we used to think that the plastic pollution is about the plastic waste we are seeing with our eyes, but this is not. Plastic is dangerous when you cannot see it anymore, when it becomes micro and nano-sized, because then it is able to spread everywhere in each compartment of our planet and then also to translocate within our organs. And this is where it is interacting with life. And this is where plastic is becoming dangerous. So we are using a lot of plastic. We have used a lot of plastic. We are still using a lot of plastic. And just to give you an idea, here in New Zealand, we are using more than 110 kilograms per person and per year, which is a huge amount. It's more or less the equivalent of the American people consumption.
What is the American?
It's about 130 kilograms per person and per year. And this consumption is still increasing. And this is because our way of life is responsible of this augmentation of our consumption. We are developing solutions like plastic recycling, which are totally not
useless.
Yes, they are totally inefficient, not efficient. And there is almost no action to reduce our consumption, because for reducing our consumption, we need to change our way of life, and we need also to change our industry sectors, the way they are doing their own activities. And this is why the plastic pollution issue is really a concern, is a huge concern, because if we are going on, as now, we have already accumulated a lot of plastic. If we are going on increasing our consumption, our own body and all the bodies of the living organisms will be totally invaded by micro and nanoplastics. And it's not possible to imagine that this huge amount of plastic will have no effect on their functioning. Just one example, and then I stop. Our brain is now, we have demonstrated very recently, this is a recent publication from American scientists, our brain is made of more than 0.5% of microplastic now. And this contamination is occurring through the olfactive nerves.
Through our
when
noses.
You are getting off your clothes made of polyesters, you are inhaling micro-sized plastic, and they are accumulated in your brain because not even one organism on Earth is able to digest. Plastic is not biodegradable, and this is really the key issue of plastic.
Do we know the effect in the body?
Yes, we are extending our knowledge. The effect is very complicated because it's an effect occurring in different aspects and occurring in the long run. And also because it's difficult to study, because the microplastics are becoming dangerous and nanoplastics when they are aging, weathering, because their surface are becoming very rough and they are interacting very easily with our own proteins. When they are coming close to our organisms, they are able to interact with our own proteins. They are recovering themselves with our own proteins. This is what we call the protein corona. And this protein make them invisible for our organisms because they cannot recognize these particles like a stranger. So there is no, because our body is equipped to refuse. And but when these particles are covered with this protein corona, your own body is not able to recognize them as stranger particles. And so they can translocate very easily.
Sam, let's bring you in, because you've looked at the effect of these microplastics specifically in marine ecologies. What have you found?
We've seen the impact of all sorts of different types of plastics, polypropylene, polyesters, nylons, rayons, on marine organisms. So we've looked at how they impact algae and macrofauna, so clams and worms, and what the concentrations looks like and what the effects can be. And largely, these are coming out in total as biogeochemical effects. These are on the large systems, the large processes of our Earth, and these are really important, and they tie back to us human beings and the way that we breathe and the way that we, so where we get oxygen from, largely from the ocean. That's producing oxygen and we consume it. Our food is also from the ocean, and as these organisms are not only ingesting plastics, but being impacted by plastics, it's impacting the way that they are participating in biogeochemical cycles. So cycles of elements on our Earth like oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, and that comes back and impacts us largely in how our estuaries function, our oceans function, and these are big, worrisome problems that we should be thinking about in our future to come and how our planet is going to look.
Can we talk about the source of this problem? Like, how did we get here?
How do we get here? I think that because there is a huge misunderstanding about plastic pollution. We have been informed that plastic pollution is coming from mismanagement of plastic waste, which is clearly not the case. This is like a lie, I would say, in order to develop industries that will be able to manage waste. And once waste is not managed, is well managed, there is no plastic pollution, which is totally wrong. Because even if plastic waste were perfectly managed, not even one plastic waste thrown in the environment or anywhere, plastic pollution starts from the very beginning of the plastic production. When you are producing plastic, you are starting producing micro and nanoplastic. You know, these plastic pellets that are dispersed in the oceans and so on. Then the plastic pollution go on during the usage. So during usage, for example, when you are using plastics in the buildings, they are aging, weathering, and they are releasing many micro and nanoplastics. And then it's going on when you have clothes, you are washing your clothes, you are releasing micro and nanoplastics.
Unless you wear cotton?
Unless you have cotton, because cotton is biodegradable, or silk, or wool, or whatever you want. This is the same for wood and so on. And in fact, there is a release of plastic particles during the whole life chain. And life chain, this word is important because usually we speak about life cycle, but there is no cycle for plastic. And this is really the main issue. I don't know why we are all talking about cycle, because cycle is not possible for plastics, because particles are released during the whole life chain and we cannot have cycles. And it has been very well explained just now when you were explaining that plastic are not able to reintegrate the biological and geochemical cycle existing on Earth. because it's not possible. And this is the only materials that the human have invented that is not able to reintegrate these biogeochemical cycles. And the issue is that we have very bad understanding of this pollution. We think that plastic pollution is about waste management, which is not at all the case. Yeah. We think that plastic pollution is about carbon footprint, which is not at all the case. It's wrong also, Life cycle analyses are able to capture greenhouse gas emission and to measure them and to translate them into carbon footprint. But the main issue with plastic is the impact of plastic particles. And this impact, we do not have enough knowledge to quantify it. We know that they are huge and they are occurring over a very large range time for centuries and millennia. So we are not able to put a number on this. And this is why it's not quantified in life cycle methodology, not because we don't want. It's just because this methodology has been designed to use numbers, and we do not have numbers. So it's not taken at all into account. So we are reasoning in carbon footprint, which is really not the key danger of plastic. Of course, plastic production is releasing greenhouse gas also.
But that's only one effect.
And it's not the
even
main
the big
one.
effect.
This is not the main danger of plastic. So we think that plastic pollution is about plastic waste management. We think that this is about carbon footprint. We don't know, we are not informed that plastic pollution occurs since the very beginning of the production. And even if plastic waste were perfectly managed, we will be highly polluted. And the results with this plastic waste is that we are focusing on single-use plastic. Once again, I agree, single-use plastic are not good. But even if you use plastic for a very long time, you will still be polluting.
Because of
and
the
I don't know why we have
shedding.
these ideas. Yeah. Oh, this plastic is not an issue because we will use it for decades. But wrong. As far as you put it in your house, for example, I don't know, windows made of PVC, of polyvinyl chloride, it will age and it will release plastic particles that you will breathe in your house, and it will and it means that the plastic pollution will start even if you use it for 50 years. You will be polluted by this plastic during 50 years. So plastic is not only single-use matters, and there is many like that, many misunderstanding, and I think that the key reason for this misunderstanding is that because we have, can I say that, we put the priority in our economy first.
Absolutely.
And all industry sectors, all sectors of activity, including medical activities, are using huge amount of plastic. And they don't want to change their habit because changing means putting efforts, monies, and we prefer to stay blind and say, okay, we will find a technological solution and then it will be done. We will not have to make effort to change our way of life, our way of working, our way of doing. But as far as we will not change our way of living, working, and so on, we will not reduce plastic pollution.
I don't know if you're aware that there is a major lawsuit in California against the fossil fuel industry for the very lie that you are talking about and saying that plastic can be recycled. And I don't know where that has ended, but I wonder if there are other such efforts to identify and to show where the initial misinformation came from. Do you know of any?
I think that all the industry sectors, all the economic stakeholders are responsible for this misunderstanding. And as far as we will not scrutinize our own way of working, of living, we will not change nothing. And we have ongoing international negotiation, for reducing the plastic pollution, for mitigating. But they are mainly targeting the plastic production. Okay, I agree. plastic production is an issue. But we are living in a market economy. If we are not using it, the production of plastic will be reduced. And this is why, to my opinion, as far as the countries with the highest PIB in the world will not change their way of consumption, will not reduce their consumption of plastic, we will not reduce the plastic production.
You say that pollution. The U.S. and New Zealand are very high.
Not only, but yes, you are the highest, among the highest. We are, because Europe is not so far behind. We are not so far. But
is there a ranking?
Yes, you can go on the OECD data. You will find the ranking. It should be the target for reducing plastic pollution. There is no other way for reducing this plastic pollution than reducing our consumption, of course.
I wonder if we should turn to all the different ways, short-term and long-term, that we can start to address this. And Sam, maybe you even want to bring in the work you've done around tires and that sort of a thing. I mean, she's studied how the tires are shedding these microplastics as well. Yeah. So if you wanted to start on some of the things that you're seeing from your research in terms of what could be done, short-term, long-term, medium-term, and then maybe we can turn to the bigger solutions.
Yeah, I can speak to the research that we've done for time frames. And the immediate impacts that we're seeing is largely from the chemical additives that's released from plastics, which is a whole nother thing we need to think about, not just the plastic particle and the molecules of the plastic backbone itself, but the additives that are used within them. These additives can leach, within the first couple of 24 hours, couple of days, weeks, or something like this. But there'll be these sort of first rapid impacts that you see in nature to these biogeochemical cycles that I'm speaking to. When these additives are released, then you kind of start to look at the impacts coming from these microplastics and nanoplastics that are being generated, which can start to happen immediately, but I think largely these shed more over time. So these
and this is from the tires primarily, or from everything?
Everything. I'm just speaking to largely plastics. They all function differently, so additives will be released from different types of plastics at different time frames. But generally speaking, from what we've found so far, I'm kind of putting things into time frame sort of classifications here, I guess, for time purposes. But so then in the medium and long term, we start thinking about the plastic backbone. How's that breaking down, and how is that getting incorporated into organisms, and including ourselves when it makes it back to us in our water and in our food from nature. So and then ultra long term, not really sure, but these plastics are meant to be breaking down over hundreds of years. So we've really only started looking at this, and we actually only have data since 1950 to look through. So we still have so many decades to go to be able to look at the long-term impacts of this.
So then how do we solve this problem? Given that we are, as you say, Nathalie, in a market economy and use it for everything, where do we start?
It's a huge question.
If you had a magic wand and you could...
My first recommendation will be to start with education. Education of industry people. Yes, for sure. Not education of children, education of industry people. This is the most important, because they have to propose to us goods and services with the minimum of plastic. We need to reduce our use of plastic to the strict necessary, to the just necessary. And this is important to be able to identify which plastic are essential, which plastic are not. And this is not about replacing plastic by other materials, similar material. This is also doing in other way. For example, this is the birthday of your nephew. You can, instead of offering her or him a toys in plastic, you can offer some of your times with him. And I think that we need to also mainly to have this type of thoughts and efforts in all activities sectors, in all industries. And industries have never been asked to identify their essential plastic, and they never had such targets in terms of plastic consumption reductions. And I think that as far as our authority, our policymakers are not brave enough to put these targets to our industries, nothing will happen in terms of plastic pollution. And we will go on polluting. And going on polluting is not only about our own health. This is about jeopardizing how the next generation will survive. And as you have very well explained, this is a matter of centuries, of millennia. It takes a very long time. And each kilogram we are producing and using today will stay for centuries. And we need to understand that, which means that it is an accumulation system. And it's not only about accumulation, because if the plastic were just accumulating, we could think that one day we will find a magic solution to eliminate them. But not. It would be too simple. The fact is that plastic are fragmenting, and when they have reached the micro and the nano size, it's impossible to recover them. And now it's too late after that. We can do nothing. We will have them everywhere. They will invade our Earth, all the compartments, our organisms, and so on and so on. So we need to be very conscious to understand that this is an irreversible process. If we do not reduce right now our plastic consumption, we are compromising the next generation survival. It's very hard to say that, but this is obvious. And we should not wait to have more data about that, because once we will have this data, once we will be able to count our death, it will be too late. We won't be able to clean the planet with the micro and nano-sized particles. It will be far too late. And I hope that it's not too late today. So we need to react very quickly. And it's a pity, really, because I think that we could have really, it's not going back to old time. We could live better with less plastic, believe me. We are spending a lot of our time working, earning money just to buy material things. And these materials, most of them are made with plastic. And we don't even know what to do with them, because they are really, we have too many material things. They are invading our own life.
Invading our own life, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So the first priority you think would be to get industry to stop the manufacturing of the plastic?
To reduce drastically their use of plastic to the strict necessary.
And so,
which means identify essential plastic. But for identifying essential plastic, you need to think about their function, but you need to be able also to identify where the plastic are. And most of the people working are not educated to understand where the plastic are. Most of the time, when I explain to someone, for example, to an engineer, so I say, yes, this is plastic. Do you know that we are sitting on plastic? The floor is in plastic. The wall here are in plastic. The microphone is plastic. Most of people don't know that. So we need to be first educated.
So there is that. And then, of course, industry, there are some industries that are going to drastically fight that. The fossil fuel industry, that's the source of the plastic ultimately, isn't it? I mean, it is part of their product that they sell to us. And then, of course, it's in our creams and soaps and all of that sort of a thing as well. So that's one place to start, getting people to quit using plastic where possible. How do we do that? What are the main things that would make the biggest impact?
I think if it could be like a video game, when you wake up in the morning and all the plastic that's around you is illuminated with a certain type of color, pick your, maybe not your favorite color, your most scared color, pick red, I don't know, and think to yourself, when I wake up, all the things that are plastic in this room, and when I go to work, all the things that are plastic at work, they're going to be highlighted in red. And then maybe people will start to think, wow, that's a lot of plastic around me. And then if you could see the microplastics coming off of that material and then just see where it goes out into the streets, down into the estuaries, out into the coast, out into the ocean. If you could, up your nose.
In your mouth.
If you could visually see that.
There is rain of microplastic everywhere. I know that.
Yeah, I would start there. I would love to... That might actually be horrible for people to see, but I think it's just that awareness, getting to your mind of how much is there, how much is around you, and then what it can do and the implications of it. I would love to share the knowledge that I have of reading papers over the last decade of microplastics and what happens. But, we can only do so much. And I would start there with people's awareness.
Nathalie?
Exactly. Awareness means education. But for me, usually we put this awareness on the shoulders of the consumers. And my opinion that this should not be the priorities. The priorities are the people who are selling goods and services. They need to propose us very clearly, in a transparent way, goods and services with the minimum of plastic in order to offer to the consumer a way to choose. Because right now we are unable to choose because there is no mandatory information about this. And I don't understand why, because we know right now that it is a danger. This is the precautionary principle. The precautionary principle say you cannot spread in huge amount a substance without demonstrating that this substance is not dangerous for the current generation and the next one. And this is exactly the case for plastic. And this is even the contrary. We have demonstrated, we know now that this material is dangerous for the next generation, mainly. So why are we going on in spreading it in larger and larger amount on Earth? Who is allowing that? We are just...
and profiting
suiciding
from it.
ourselves. We are suiciding ourselves just for having, I don't know, like a few seconds of pleasure by touching a very soft materials, So what is the point for that? And most of the time, this is not the case.
Yeah.
I don't understand why.
So there's also the
which
question,
type of civilization is doing that?
Yeah, so the last things I want to end on. So first of all, there are industries profiting from this, so we should be clear about that. But the second thing that I wanted to just finally get to before we run out of time is the Plastics Treaty. What has happened with this treaty? Where is it? And will it have any effect?
This plastics treaty, for the time being, this is like a fight between different countries. Countries there is on one side, countries who are producing them, okay? USA, Russia, and so on. There is the countries who are using them. And there is the mainly South countries who are receiving our plastic waste. And for the time being, there is a huge coalition named Ambitious Countries Coalitions. And these ambitious country coalitions has decided to put as a priority the reduction of the production. But the countries who are producing the plastic, of course, they disagree. They will never reduce their production because they are sitting on this economy. So I don't understand why these ambitious countries did not put targets on themselves by reducing their consumption. Because if the consumption is reduced, the production will automatically be reduced because we are living in a market economy. So I think that the richest countries in the world, which are most of the time the most ambitious one, need to reduce their consumption. And the treaty will never progress if we do not start with this. once these countries will have accepted targets of consumption reduction, then we will see a reduction of production. And for the timing, this is not the case. There is not the fight between the highest consumers, the countries who have the highest consumption, saying, wow, reduce your production. And the countries who have the highest production saying, oh, but of course not. We will not reduce our production because all our economy is based on this production.
That's right.
So, to my opinions, we still need some progress in our way of thinking this treaty. I remember the one session of the treaty occurring in Kenya, and the president of the session start with the gavel and saying, "Here, this gavel is the future. It's a recycled plastic gavel." They replace the wooden gavel by a plastic recycling gavel. And I think that as far as the president of the negotiation himself did not understand yet what is plastic pollution, I don't see how the treaty will go in the right direction. So we still need to educate also our policymakers, really.
Thank you so much for all of this wisdom, for your research, for sharing it with us, both of you, Samantha and Nathalie. What a pleasure to host you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Maria and Samantha. Thank you,
Nathalie.
That's it for today's program. Thank you to our guests, to Ben Goldson and Tim Page for production, and thank you for listening. Tune in next time.